Okay, and we'll take the caller's question and put that in the video as well.
Hey, Jack. I just have a comment about the people who say, but who will build the roads? When they ask that question, it's not about who's going to physically build the roads. It's about, how will the placement and size of roads be decided. It's not about anarchy. It's about the capitalism or, the criticism is that sometimes decisions are made for the benefit of the community, and the government at least pretends to do that. So, roads are a monopoly. Monopolies don't go very well with capitalism. So, how would the roads work? Meaning, who would decide where the roads go and who can travel and what the toll would be? Sometimes there's situations where, medical emergency, you don't have time to go, half hour that way. Instead, you have to just get there. So, all right, I'm wondering what your thoughts are. Thanks.
Okay, well, kind of repeating the question had some parts of it that maybe didn't come through audio-wise that well. I think I get the gist of it. The question is really a comment, and it's a follow-up from my piece about, well, who would build the roads in an anarchy last week. And a lot of what I said still applies, so I don't want to rehash too much of it, but we're back to this reality. Anarchy is not something you're going to flip a switch and we're going to go from a free, a statist society to an anarchy overnight. It's just not going to happen. It's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. And that means we need to be thinking along the timeline of we solve these problems as the opportunity to solve them presents itself. And if everything went perfect in the mind of most anarchists that are intelligent people and realists, you would be at least 100 years away from a point where we've gutted the state all the way down to the point where we're finally willing to turn and go, well, who will build my roads? Okay? Who's going to do it? And how's it going to happen? And will it work? So it's a cat that has to be skinned so far in the future, it's not even worth worrying about. And you're still thinking in technology that's roughly 100 years old, automobiles. As though by the time we got there, everybody would still be, getting in a car, turning a key, burning gasoline to go down the road, when we have companies like Apple and Google and Uber that are building electric vehicles that are auto-driven. You get in one and it takes you where you want to go. And this is coming. I would say by 2020, Uber will probably have this, at least in trials in certain areas. Okay? So there'll probably be somebody sitting there like a pilot on autopilot in case it goes wrong, right? To get through regulatory hurdles and things like that in the beginning. But this is technology that's coming. So the way we'll even get places is going to be changed by then. So how much are we going to worry about it? Okay? But let's say we were in an anarchy right now. How would it be done? How would it be handled? Well, first of all, people are under the assumption that because you're in an anarchy, you keep using the word capitalism. And the problem with a lot of people who use the word capitalism is that word does not mean what you think it means. There's actually two very different ways to look at capitalism. Capitalism is, in minds of some people, and both are kind of right, but in the minds of some is the control of the capital itself, the control of the monetary system. Okay? In an anarchy, you couldn't have that type of capitalism. It wouldn't work. Capitalism, in the minds of most people who are favorable to the way they look at capitalism, is the concept of owning a business and having the ability to control that and private ownership. And so anarcho-capitalism is a belief by anarchists in that private ownership. And remember, you can be any kind of anarchist you want until you start telling somebody else what kind of anarchist they have to be. So you could be a socialist anarchist, an anarcho-communist, but you can't impose your will on others, or it's not an anarchy anymore. But in all of these systems, historically, there's the concept of what's called the commons. So the commons might be that you have in a tribal system that's as close to an anarchy as anything we would have, multiple tribes. And they would have areas that they had complete control over, and you could only come in if you were from another tribe by invitation or special arrangement. But then there would be larger areas that were communal, and that would be called the commons. In British early government, there were even commons where, even though the noblemen owned, huge swaths of land, those lands were available for anybody to graze with their sheep or their cattle. So that's commons. And roads would fall under the concepts of the commons. So there might be a need for some sort of payment to maintain and upkeep those methods of travel. But overall, the concept here isn't, well, how do we pay for it? How do we get somebody to do it? How do we maintain it? How do we figure out where we put one? Because this guy is stupid jerk that owns private property, doesn't want a road to his property, and if they're going to do it, he wants so much money we can't afford to put a road there. So how do we figure this out? Well, what you're actually saying then is, without the state's ability to tell someone, I don't care if your family has owned this farm for 200 years and maintained it, we are going to take a great big giant piece of it, we're going to pay you jack diddly crap for it, and there's nothing you can do about it, and if you try to stop us, men with guns will come and arrest you or kill you. That's what you're saying. Without that threat of violence, literally at the point of a gun, we just can't figure out where we're going to put a road. Let's assume that you're right. Okay. How many new roads do we need right now? Where do we need a road? There isn't a road right now. Those easements, or commons in an anarchy or a minarchy, exist. They're already there. We don't need a bunch more. We're technologically evolving in a way that's actually going to reduce the amount of vehicles on the road, and we're worried about building more of them. Now, we will always need roads. There will always be means of travel that will use that type of connection. I believe that. We are a long way, if ever possible, from the days where we go beam me to here, Scotty, right? So there will be roads, and not everybody's going to have a vertical takeoff aircraft or what have you. But if you had a new development, say people decided we're going to go out and we're going to create our own little place here, and they needed to be connected to the existing road system, then we can come to agreements as to how we get that connection in place. The people putting the development are going to want to be able to access roads. So they have an incentive as they develop to look for places where that's possible and practical. And then in the end, you're back to the market deciding. If you want a piece of someone's property, isn't it only right that they should have the opportunity to negotiate with you for a price or to tell you no? See, what you're saying when you ask this question this way is that a citizen of the country, the United States of America, or whatever developed country you're in right now, exists in a state where they do not have a right to say no if government decides that they don't. That they can have their property taken. And you're saying that's okay. You're saying that's necessary. Think about that. As though there's no way that we could ever get paths, connecting places, without the ability to threaten someone that doesn't want that path on their property. And as for monopolies not working well with capitalism, that's absolutely correct. Because in capitalism, true capitalism, again, not control of the capital itself, not control of the monetary system, in a true, open, competing, free market, monopolies are all but impossible. You can say that roads are monopolies, but if you actually had a completely free market, who knows how many competing technologies with a flat thing we just might develop. And but sometimes there's emergencies and people have to get to hospitals. Again, you're saying without the ability to threaten someone, we can't figure out how to get somebody to a place to receive medical aid. I just don't think that's the case. Let's take another one.